Luke and Penelope had been married for 3 years, sharing a modest flat tucked away on the outskirts of the city. Both worked steady jobs, lived comfortably, and tried at least in the beginning to bridge the widening gap between their personalities. Luke was a man of quiet routines, content with the comfort of home. If he wasn't working or making a quick run for groceries, he was usually wrapped in the stillness of their apartment. Penelope, by contrast, thrived on movement. Her spirit was restless, her appetite for novelty endless, always chasing the thrill of the new, the unexplored, the unplanned. At first, they made an effort to meet each other halfway. Luke would occasionally step into Penelope's fast-moving world, attending parties, tagging along to impromptu weekend adventures. But over time, the weight of their differences began to settle in. He withdrew gradually into his haven of solitude, and she, in turn, stopped trying to pull him out of it. Where once she would beg him to come along, now she simply mentioned where she would be. The invitations turned into statements. Luke rarely objected. He had learned to stop resisting her need for freedom, and Penelope had stopped expecting him to understand it. One particular weekend, Penelope, restless and bored, texted her friends and slipped out for an evening that began in a cafe. She casually mentioned the plan to Luke on her way out, brushing a kiss across his cheek before leaving. Hours later, close to midnight, Luke called her. She answered, her voice airy and bright beneath the thrum of bass-heavy music in the background. It was clear she was no longer sipping lattes. The cafe had given way to a nightclub. She sounded exuberant, intoxicated by the night, but not by alcohol, just by the thrill of being out. Luke, sitting alone at home, tense and fidgeting, asked when she planned to return. He didn't demand, he rarely did, but the question hung in the air like a warning. Penelope laughed it off, said she'd be back in an hour or two, and declined his offer to pick her up. He waited on the couch, but exhaustion crept over him, and he dozed off in the half-dark of the living room. When he stirred in the middle of the night with a sore neck, the apartment was still empty. His heart dropped. He called her once, twice, but got no answer. Only after another half-hour ticked by did the door finally open. Penelope entered as if nothing had happened. Her steps were steady, her words coherent. She wasn't drunk, wasn't staggering, but she also wasn't entirely herself. Luke, torn between worry and quiet fury, asked where she had been. She apologized vaguely, saying she'd lost track of time, and then retreated to the bedroom without a fight. The next morning, Luke woke early. Penelope was still fast asleep beside him, a gentle, dreamy smile gracing her lips. She looked peaceful, even radiant, as though she'd spent the night somewhere magical. When she finally stirred, he asked playfully, "Did I talk in my sleep?" She smiled without opening her eyes. "No," she said softly. "Why?" He shrugged, brushing it off with a chuckle. "No reason, just curious." By then, the weight of the previous night had started to fade. Luke never held on to anger long. It wasn't in his nature. He had already begun thinking about their upcoming beach trip, the one they'd been planning for months. Penelope had chosen the destination, an upscale, all-inclusive resort, and Luke had been quietly saving up for it. It was supposed to be their escape, their reset. But the trip, he would soon learn, would never happen. Something else had taken root in its place. Over the following week, Luke noticed her phone buzzing more than usual. She always dismissed the notifications quickly, slipping her phone into her pocket or flipping its screen down on the table. He never said anything, but he noticed, and when he glanced at her phone one day and saw no trace of the activity he'd heard, the suspicion sharpened. She was hiding something, and whatever it was, it involved him. That Friday, Penelope announced another night out with her girlfriends. She was headed back to the same nightclub. Luke, silent, let her go, but this time, he followed discreetly, patiently, heart pounding like a steady drumbeat in his ears. She arrived with her friends and disappeared into the crowd. Luke blended in, watching from the shadows. She laughed easily, sipped cocktails, danced with effortless charm. Her movements were graceful, her smile infectious. She scanned the room, her eyes flickering with something he couldn't quite name. Curiosity, maybe. Anticipation. Then the music changed. Lights dimmed. A group of dancers emerged onto a makeshift platform. The performance was sensual, suggestive more theater than dance. Women cheered, men hooted. The center performer was a man tall, muscular, wearing sunglasses and exuding effortless confidence. Luke's stomach twisted as he saw the way Penelope looked at the dancer. She leaned in close to her friends, whispering something that made them squeal with excitement. Then, to his disbelief, she rose from her seat and followed the dancer backstage, her friends erupting in cheers. Luke stood frozen, a storm boiling just beneath his skin. He scanned the crowd and spotted Lillian, one of Penelope's closest friends. Walking toward the restroom, he intercepted her. "Lillian," he said sharply, his voice low and tight. "Don't lie, not tonight." Lillian's eyes widened. Before she could respond, Luke pulled out his phone and played a video Penelope dancing provocatively with the performer, laughing freely, fully immersed. "This should jog your memory," he said. Lillian's face drained of color. She met him before. She confessed, her voice trembling. "There was chemistry. I thought she'd tell you. I didn't know it would go this far." Luke said nothing. He turned and walked out into the night. He didn't wait for her to come home this time. By the time she returned, the apartment was already stripped of his presence. He had packed in silence, gathering clothes, keepsakes, and his dignity, tossing them into his car like evidence from a crime scene. He had always wanted to move closer to work, a request Penelope had always brushed off. Now, her opinion no longer mattered. The vacation savings were redirected to a new apartment. A new chapter, a clean slate. Divorce papers followed swiftly. Penelope tried to reach out through texts, emails, even voicemail, insisting that it had all been a misunderstanding, that nothing happened backstage, that she had only wanted to feel alive. But Luke didn't listen. He had already heard enough. He had already seen enough. He forwarded the video to her brother, Nathan. The fallout was immediate. Nathan, furious, threw her out of his home, with nowhere left to go. Penelope moved in with Lillian. The two of them resumed their nightly escapades, chasing fleeting moments of connection beneath strobe lights and pulsing music. But something had shifted. The carefree joy was gone. In its place was a hollow ache that no amount of dancing could fill. Luke never looked back. What had once been a dream dissolved into quiet clarity. Some people chase noise to avoid silence, but Luke had learned to sit inside it. And in that silence, he found peace.